I think we can all agree that Charlie Parker is on the short list for the all-time most influential improvisers. But for us as trombone players, transcribing his solos can be intimidating. Obviously, he is most known as an alto saxophone player, so that means range can sometimes be a little bit awkward for us as essentially a B-flat instrument. There always seems to be like at least one idea in every solo that is just extremely technically difficult. And you put all that together with the fact that if you go to the original recordings, sometimes the audio quality is not super high, so actually determining what notes he's actually playing can be challenging. Even with all of these difficulties, there is still one component that we can all take away from Bird's playing, even if you never transcribe a single Charlie Parker solo. What's up everyone, Shawn Bell here, thanks for joining me this week. Today we are looking at the playing of Charlie Parker, and specifically I think one of the most overlooked aspects of his playing, and actually the bebop language in general. Now when we think about bebop, we tend to think about fast tempos, moving eighth note lines, extensions, alterations, all that kind of stuff. However, for me, one of the defining characteristics of what made Bird great and so many of the other bebop masters was not their ability to play bebop, but their ability to play the blues. Now, yes, we're talking about the song form a little bit here. There's lots of bebop tunes that are blueses, but we're really talking about the language of the blues. And these bebop players, including Charlie Parker's ability to seamlessly move from playing these harmonically dense, kind of bebop-oriented ideas right into accessing all the sort of vocal and melodic tradition of playing the blues. This is something we all want to get in our playing. So if you're someone like me who creates content every week, sometimes you go to record one day, you come back the next day to edit, and you're like, wow, I sounded really bad yesterday. That was definitely the case with this video. So in order to get some nice clean examples on some of these things, I just had to record again. Look, I was already set up to work on another project, so it was easier for me to just jump in and hit these handful of examples again. This is just a really great reminder that nothing you see online is real. I don't consider myself a very virtuosic player, and I'm certainly not trying to impress people with my playing on this channel. It's all about the teaching aspect here. But keep that in mind when you're thinking about how your playing sort of stacks up in the world of trombonists. The stuff you see online is not always all it's cracked up to be. So if we want to access a little bit of this in our own playing and hopefully get in touch with what those masters were doing, we've really got to ask ourselves, what is the blues? It actually means lots of different things. Of course, it means some of the vocabulary we might associate with the blues sound. It also has something to do with our ability to feel time and stretch over the time in a sort of vocally inflected way. Beyond just those little individual vocabulary items, you've also got to get in touch with some of the classic melodic lines that the masters played. So once you have sorted out a little bit about what it means to play the blues, it's going to be different for every player, and this is a lifelong journey of learning how to play the blues. You also got to figure out how to play bebop. Now, clearly we talk about playing changes on this channel quite a bit. So these couple of examples we're going to look at are pulled straight from Charlie Parker. They're from the solo on Now's the Time. This is one of the all-time important solos in my own development, and I think really illustrates this concept of being able to play the blues and bebop really well. Now, obviously, reducing the blues or bebop down to just a couple of licks or a couple of concepts is a little bit ridiculous. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But if we want to get this stuff into our playing, we've got to practice it just like Charlie Parker presents it in his solos. As I said, he seamlessly moves from bebop ideas to blues ideas, but it is always in a, I would say, semi-organized sounding fashion, even if he was not necessarily thinking this way. Obviously, I'll never know what Charlie Parker was thinking. It almost sounds like he played a bebop idea until it reached its sort of logical conclusion, and then a couple beats of rest, a measure of rest, right to a blues idea. That resolves, couple beats of rest, back to a bebop idea. In so many of his solos, you really hear this interplay of these two ideas, so we've got to work on that. The first thing I would do is just set up a really simple practice strategy on the blues where we're going to play 2 bars of bebop, 2 bars of the blues, or 2 bars of the blues, 2 bars of bebop with a little pause in between. Once you've invested some time in this very structured sort of practice, you can move into a little more organic setting of this concept. If you listen to Charlie Parker, I don't think it was ever that rigid. It sort of flowed between these ideas. Sometimes the bebop idea might be a little longer. Maybe it's 4 measures and then just comes in with sort of a classic blues sounding idea, and it just makes everything feel good. You sort of have that contrast, and you hear some bebop. Maybe it's a very dense, intricate idea, and then you immediately sort of get that blues resolution after it. It just feels right. So when you move this into a more organic sense, you're going to want to think about, extending these ideas, still thinking about phrasing and having this concept of we've got blues ideas, we've got bebop ideas, but how long they are, how much you choose to rest between them, how much you choose to use one type of idea or the other is all up to you. Now, as I already mentioned, this way of practicing and thinking about phrasing is pretty reductive. But if you want to overcome that, you can't just think of this as an exercise. You got to go to the source material. As I said, playing Charlie Parker is pretty hard on trombone. Even playing some of these examples today, pretty challenging examples. And I would say these are some of the easier licks. This is one of his easier solos to play on trombone. There are some challenging lines in it, but it's really pretty playable on trombone. And they're still relatively challenging just because of some of the large jumps and that kind of stuff in there. But if you really want to get it happening, that's where the answers lie. You have to develop a taste for how to alternate between these ideas, and you get that through listening, through intensive listening, and through transcribing. So you can't skip over that step and expect, hey, I learned some blues licks, I learned some bebop licks, I'm going to sound like Bird now. It just doesn't work that way. So take some of these things, take them into the practice room, practice in an organized way, and then like Bird would say, forget all of it when you go to play. Cool. We'll see you in the woodshed.